Speaking of foreign policy, we brought together some people this week at the Center for Strategic and International Studies, including Juan here, to talk about how foreign policy is being handled in this world of new media that we're all dealing with. And our Kaylee Hartung was there, and she has some highlights. Kaylee?
Thanks, Bob. You broke a little new ground at CSIS this week. Brought together current and former government officials as well as innovators from the private sector to discuss how technology is changing the public diplomacy landscape. And in this world where terrorists are increasingly using this technology for their own purposes, government officials are constantly looking for ways to push back.
We're in a very new and different world now, aren't we?
I think you're absolutely right, and I think we have focused often with how the bad actors end up using the technology. And we have to remember the technology is neutral from a policy perspective and with respect to morality. Certainly terrorist groups, Al-Qaeda and others, use these technologies to communicate, to fundraise, to radicalize, to recruit. But I think what we're finding now, and as we talk about public diplomacy in the new digital age, is trying to think about the other side of the ledger.
The government is increasingly collaborating with the private sector. They are working together using technology to advance U.S. national interests.
But the important thing is that there's actually, people often talk about government being behind the curve. When it comes to technology applied to foreign policy challenges, I would actually argue that it's a rare instance of government actually being with the curve. And in particular, early on in this administration, whether it was Iran or Moldova or the Uyghurs in China, we saw a demand on the part of this broader definition of civil society taking their advocacy into cyberspace. And cyberspace is not something separate from the traditional civil society that we know. It's an extension. And so our feeling inside the government, and in particular the Secretary of State's feeling, was if people are taking their advocacy into an extended version of civil society, then our policies that are empowering them, protecting them, and enhancing their ability to get around things like human rights violations, politically motivated censorship, you name it, need to also expand to a broader civil society.
We just came back from a trip in Russia, and we had the CEO of eBay, John Donahoe, Jack Dorsey, the creator of Twitter, Padmasri Warrior, the CTO of Cisco. Really, because of Jared reaching out to the private sector, and back to this point, it's actually one of the rare instances where the government has been ahead of the curve. I'd say the private sector has been behind the curve in the sense of using and understanding the role that we could play within public diplomacy. So it's not just us creating services and letting them go into the wild and evolve, but also engaging us in the process. And that trip was, I think, for all of us, an eye-opener in terms of the role that we could play.
As technology evolves, the government is challenged to find innovative ways to apply that technology to foreign policy making.
Okay, Kaylee. I really like the old guy. He asks good questions.
I've seen him somewhere before.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Juan, for being with us today.